Welcome everyone to QuickBooks Online Update Q2 2021. Today is October 21st, and the reason why we're mentioning the date, because this stuff gets recorded and gets posted into YouTube afterwards and all that stuff, and unfortunately dates make this type of content dated, is because in QuickBooks Online things change fast, things move fast. So if there's a change to your QuickBooks 2, 3, 4 months after you watch this video, then you understand the reasons why we enter the date. So hopefully there isn't that many new things happening in the next couple months after this video, but this is being recorded and broadcasted on October 21st, 2021. As a reminder, the link to the slides are down there in the chat box or in the description. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. There's no need for you to raise your hand in Zoom, and we're not gonna have anybody log in via meeting and that sort of thing. So just put your questions in the chat box and I'll try to answer them as we go. All right, let's get started. So today we're going to cover quickly, under 5 minutes, just what else is coming up in my world, free and paid webinar programs that are out there. We're going to talk about some price changes in QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. We are going to talk about some other QBO related announcements. Then we're going to move into updates in QBO Core. That means across all versions of QuickBooks, what are all the things that they have added. So we're going to talk about some of the things that they've added. And then we're going to talk about changes in QuickBooks Online Advanced, QuickBooks Online Advanced only, because they do need to be treated as two different products at this point, as QuickBooks tends to put more innovation money into QuickBooks Online Advanced. All right, so the upcoming events, what else is going on in my world? I'm going to be speaking at QuickBooks Connect, which is November 3rd and November 4th. The link is right there if you want to register. I'm teaching 2 classes on QuickBooks Online Reports, the basics and the advanced, so check that out. Starting November 10th, I'm gonna do 6 sessions of implementing Notify for QuickBooks Online. I'm doing this with Tanya Schulte, the world's expert in Notify. So if you have construction businesses, construction clients that you work with, and you're thinking about adding Notify to QuickBooks Online as the app to manage the business, and you want to learn Notify, we're going to have a 6-part series, an hour and a half per part. It's going to be 8 to 9 hours worth of content, teaching you from zero all the way to reports and all that stuff on how to work with Notify. That's a price tag of $250 for all 6 sessions. You can watch them live, and you can also watch the recordings afterwards. Then on November 11th, I'm doing Mastering QuickBooks Online Reports for 2.5 hours. It's a master class with Alicia Katz. That's going to be $150. The link is there for that. And then in January of 2022, I'm going to do the next quarterly update. So for you people that attend my quarterly webinars and the ones that I sprinkle here and there through the year, this is it. This is what I do. I do quarterly QuickBooks Online updates. That's the only webinar that I have on a specific cadence. So if you're watching this in Zoom live, then you don't need to register for the very last one. You're automatically getting those updates. If you're watching this in YouTube or recording shared from a friend, you have to download the slides and click on the link to register and to access the Zoom live webinar that's going to be for the next quarterly update in January of next year. So let's talk about some QBO related announcements and new features in the roadmap. The biggest one is Intuit has acquired a company called DataDeer or DataDeer. It's a UK based company, and basically it's an app that connects to your QuickBooks Online, downloads all the transactions into Excel. It's an Excel add-on, and allows you to view all the data in Excel, manipulate it, and post it back. So for people that want to do batch changes, changing memos, changing customers, changing vendors, changing amounts, changing items, whatever, you're going to, once they've completely bring this app into the fold, you're going to be able to manipulate your data in incredible ways using DataDeer. Now, I haven't used DataDeer. I try to set up a free trial in the website or even a paid subscription. is not allowing you. I assume that once Intuit bought them, they're no longer creating new accounts. And from what I gathered, from what I understand from this, is they're gonna include it for free, or it's gonna be part of QuickBooks Online Advanced. There's a link down there where they talk about the announcement, and it's probably gonna happen early 2022. If it happens earlier, that would be nice. And this is not like Transaction Pro Importer. This is something that takes the data, shows it in Excel. You can choose to just look at it, do reports on it, do pivot tables, or you can choose to manipulate it and send it back. So yes, it's going to have some importing capabilities, but this is going to be much more useful for editing transactions in batch. I'm sure the tool will have all other sorts of uses, but that's mostly what it's going to be. The reason why I can speak to this in property is because I've used apps like this before. I use an app called CData, that costs like $300 a year. At this point, they've gone up in price. That does this exact same thing, and it works really, really well. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I commend Intuit for making such an acquisition. Of course, almost all of you and me myself are going to be very disappointed when they say, oh, no, it only works in QuickBooks Online Advanced. I'm sure that's going to be a contention point and a disappointment point. But that's likely what they're going to do. Now, it would be nice if they make it available to accountants, maybe as an extra fee or something like that. But it looks like this might be an app that they acquired for the purpose of having additional value in QuickBooks Online Advanced. Okay? All right. The next thing that's coming soon, which is a big deal for most of you, is like, really? It shouldn't be a big deal, but it is. They're going to add the capability of editing payroll after the fact in QuickBooks Online. That should be available in the next week or so. So by the end of October, that should be available. There's going to be a workflow for editing a paycheck and then making changes to the liability accounts if there's already been a tax pay with that, because it gets complex when you change a payroll check after you already pay the tax, because you could potentially affect your payroll liability. And for the very long time, for the longest time, QuickBooks Online avoided letting end users make changes to the payroll checks to avoid people making messes in QuickBooks Online Payroll, the way people make messes in QuickBooks Desktop Payroll now, where it allows you to change paychecks after the fact. So prior to this change, you had to call support and they would make a change on that. Now you'll be able to make a change to a paycheck. Now, some of the applications to this could be, adding some missing deduction, 401k, so healthcare expense, whatever. There's things that are better to be added in the paycheck at the end of the year instead of throughout. So that's probably going to be the best application to this. Other than that, I think we shouldn't be editing paychecks after the fact, in theory, right? But this is going to be great. I love this. I mean, this is one of the biggest pet peeves I've had with QuickBooks Online Payroll is, having to call support and wait whatever time it takes. I'm an accountant, I'm a professional, I know what I'm doing. I want to be able to edit checks. So they have announced it. I have not seen it. It looks very promising. They announced a whole onslaught of features to their payment platform. And hear me on this. These are all game changers. They're very small, little changes, but they do add tons of additional dynamic to the whole payments concept. Number one, users are going to be able to schedule a payment in the future. So they get your invoice via email. It's got a pay now button. They press pay now. They don't have the money to pay you now, but they'll have it next week. They go in there, they choose the payment date, they execute the payment earlier, and then it gets scheduled to be paid in the future. Awesome. Again, seems simple. I think it's a game changer. I think a lot of customers are going to end up paying those invoices more and more often if they have the flexibility of getting it done today, even though they don't have the money today. So I think this is huge. I love it. I would like to see this implemented ASAP. Not ready yet. They've announced it. They announced it in June. So at this point, they're probably going to announce this in QuickBooks Connect in November. So I'm suspecting that this stuff, again, speculation, this should be available around November. The next one is automatic payment for recurring invoices. This is awesome. If you create a recurring invoice for $500 a month or whatever, and you put the checkbox that the customer can pay you online, when the customer gets the first invoice, they'll be able to pay the first invoice and also click on turn on monthly payments so they can automatically set up their own automatic payment process. In QuickBooks Online, if you have your credit cards, your customer's credit card information, you can set up a sales receipt to be charged automatically. That's already available. That's been available for 3 or 4 years. What's cool about this is you create not a sales receipt, you create an invoice, and the invoice is automated. It's recurring, and the customer can choose that. Okay. All right. Next one. Adding tips to payments. Again, that's interesting, right? Like where somebody can add a tip to an invoice. Again, this is in my world. I've never had a customer tip me because they will pay me exactly what the invoice says. There's no mechanism for tipping. So I wonder if this is gonna encourage people randomly tipping their service provider this way. Again, really cool little things, but game changer in my opinion. So you have all these things that are going to be added. And the last one, which I think is awesome, really awesome, is you're going to be able to create an estimate and enter how much you require as a deposit in order to start the work. Okay? So this is going to allow you to create an estimate, put in QuickBooks Online how much deposit you're requiring. Then you'll be able to send the customer your estimate. You'll be able to send the customer estimate, and then the customer will pay only the deposit from that estimate. So without having to pay the whole thing up front or without having to send them an invoice. And specifically when it comes to the automatic payment, the scheduled payment, the automatic payment, and the tips, I am making the assumption there's going to be a setting where you can turn off and on these things. So if you don't want automatic payment, if you don't want tips, if you don't want the scheduled payment, I'm pretty sure you could turn that off. Okay, but again, I don't know for sure. They haven't said that, but I'm pretty sure it's going to turn that off. Now, the big question that accountants ask is, hey, where does the deposit go? Well, it's probably going to go into accounts receivable as a negative accounts receivable account. I don't know how deposits work in QuickBooks now. I think deposits go into undeposited funds maybe right now when you put deposits on an invoice. So I'm not sure what the mechanism is going to look like. I assume it's going to be a negative accounts receivable. It's the only thing I can think of. And also, I don't know if the deposit will automatically apply to an invoice in the future. I'm assuming there's going to be a open credit, and you manually will have to apply that credit to the invoice once the invoice is created. And of course, deposits don't have sales tax, right? So the deposit would be a flat dollar amount, no sales tax. It doesn't count as income because it goes into your balance sheet, negative AR. Okay. So if you want to apply a sales tax to a deposit, you have to do an actual invoice. All right. So that's it. That's it for those. I think those are all awesome, by the way. Those are great announcements. I hope to see that before the end of the year. Let's talk about what's going on in pricing and QBO versus desktop. What's going on in that world? So QuickBooks Online, since summer, has not changed in pricing. If you remember last summer, Essentials went up from 40 to 50. Was it 40 to 50? Yeah. Simple Start went from 20 to 25. Plus went from 70 to 80. And Advanced went from 150 to 180. As of today, the prices have not changed. However, discounts on new accounts, and this used to be different before they changed it. When you create a new account, a new QBO account, brand new, you have the option to get 30% of discount for life if the accountant or the pro advisor is paying for it directly with the pro advisor account. You got the option of giving the customer a 12-month discount for 30% if you use what's called a QSP link in the slides. There's a QSP link. That's my QSP link. If you don't know where QSP link and you're an accountant or someone that sells QuickBooks, you should definitely become a QuickBooks reseller so you can have your own QSP link so you can give your customers 30% discount and get paid for recommending or selling QuickBooks Online. My email's down there if you want to become a QSP, a reseller yourself, I can show you how to do that. And then I'll show you how much you get paid and all that stuff. We can discuss that later. Again, if you're an accountant or an advisor that sells and recommends QuickBooks and you don't have your own QSP link, email me. I'll work you through that process. And if the customer goes directly to buy QuickBooks, QuickBooks.com, they're going to be offered either a 30-day discount, 30-day trial, or 50% off for 3 months. That's what's going to be available. So that's changed because there used to be different discounts available. Those are the standard discounts that are available on new accounts if you choose to go any of those routes. QuickBooks Desktop has changed a lot. QuickBooks Desktop 2022 has moved officially to subscription. You cannot buy QuickBooks Desktop 2022 as an outright license. You will pay annually for your QuickBooks Desktop 2022 subscription, and they're adding plus to it. And the word plus means that QuickBooks makes more money. The word plus means that you have to pay annually for it. So to give you a general idea, the prices are on the screen for the 1 and 3 user or Pro Plus, for the 1 to 5 user of Premier Plus. There is a discount for your first year. So usually you get $100 off per user on the first year, but then these are the second year and beyond prices. So again, if you want to purchase QuickBooks Desktop from a reseller, I'm a reseller. There's my email. If you want to become a reseller so you can sell it to your customers, email me and I'll show you what does it take to become a QSP. You have to email me. That's how because I have a standard email and a standard process that I will send you for that. Now, good news. QuickBooks Desktop Accountant 2022 is the last SKU left that you can purchase as an outright license in the QuickBooks Desktop world. So if you want to buy QuickBooks Desktop Accountant 2022, it's $800 one-time cost for one user, $1,700 one-time cost for a 3 user, $2,300 one-time cost for a 5 user, and $3,700 one-time cost for a 10 user. Asterisk, you can only have 5 users working simultaneously on a single file. So an accounting firm that has 10 users can get a 10 user license, but they can only have 5 people working on one particular file at a time if they're all working in multi-user mode. Again, that's not available anywhere but through a reseller. So if you need to buy this SKU, you got to contact the reseller. There's my email, or if you want to become a reseller yourself, email me and I'll help you through that process. You can still buy QuickBooks Desktop 2021 Non-Plus editions, QuickBooks Desktop 2021 Non-Plus editions through December 10th. After December 10th, you will no longer be able to buy Pro or Premier 2021. You can only buy 2022, and it's only subscription. So basically, by September or October of 2022, again, September or October 2022, there will no longer be any desktop edition at all that will be available. Next year, QuickBooks will completely become subscription. So with QuickBooks Desktop licenses, for example, 2021, it's only going to be supported 3 years after its release date, May 31st. So for example, QuickBooks Desktop 2021 will be supported until May 31st, 2024. So on June 1st, 2024, it will not be supported anymore. It doesn't mean it'll stop working. Okay, so the 2021 Non-Plus will still work, but none of the connected services will work. Payroll won't work, payments won't work, bank feeds won't work, sending invoices won't work. Anything that connects online will not work. So it'll still work as a regular banking, data entry, financial statement, invoicing tool. You just can't use any of the connected services. Plus, if something goes wrong with it, support will not help you. Okay, I don't know if there's any special pricing for pro advisors or accountants. These are the prices that we authorize to sell for as resellers. So again, 3 years after its release year, May 31st will be the day that it will stop being supported. 3 years after its release year. So Desktop 2022 Accountant will stop being supported on May 31st, 2025. Okay. All right. Let's move on to new features in QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Online Advanced. One thing I want to cover, I did an entirely separate webinar for an hour. Yeah, for an hour. It's in my YouTube channel that talks about all the new features of 2022, desktop edition, and all the details around the subscription model. So check out my YouTube channel for the video. It's called QuickBooks Desktop 2022 Pricing and New Features. That's what it's called. So in this webinar, we're going to focus on QuickBooks Online for the most part. We just had that little mention for desktop. One more thing is worth mentioning, and I didn't put a slide to this. This is more for accountants and pro advisors. They just released a new certification. It's a payroll certification. The new payroll certification is awesome. I love showing to my customers that payroll is something I specialize on, that I'm good at. But I took the exam and the training materials, and they don't seem to be connected. I was able to pass the exam, but they don't seem to be connected. So I would probably wait until maybe a couple of months until they get all the training materials for payroll ready before you start getting frustrated trying to become certified in QuickBooks Payroll. So that's not part of the slides here because that's just really specific to pro advisor certifications, but you wanted to throw it out there because I thought I saw some question in the chat box about it. Okay, so the first thing that they added in the last quarter to QuickBooks Online, which I hate. So I'll start off the bat saying, I hate this. Will I get used to it? Yeah, probably. I'll probably get used to it. I probably would be okay with it at some point in the future, but like all accountants, I hate change. I'm resistant to change. They changed the way the navigation looks like for end users, for customers. So this is, I've only seen this in new accounts that were created in the last month or so. On the older accounts, I don't get to see the new menu. I am going to switch over to QuickBooks so I can show you. I do have an account that has the menu, so now you should be able to see it. Let me just check that you can see my screen, okay? Okay. Yes, it looks like you can see your screen, okay? So right here on the left navigation bar, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we get a little bit more. Looks a little bit better like this, okay? So they made the new button a little bit thinner. Why they did that, I don't know. Like, I don't know who told them, I want the new button to be thinner. So I'm not sure where they got that feedback from. Maybe they just changed the font size, and the font size auto size that button. The button still works the same, which is nice. When you click on new, you still get the stuff that you're used to seeing in the new button. But everything I've moved around, like for example, business overview is where now you can see a secondary menu that opens up. That gets you to Performance Center, Reports, Planner. This is your cash flow planner, projects, and budgets. Okay, so they decided that all those categories go inside Business Overview. Second one is banking, and in banking you're going to see QuickBooks Cash. Of course, Intuit selling you one of their products. Okay, I know, but that's what it is. QuickBooks Capital, also them selling you one of their products. Business Credit Score, also selling you, well, this might be free. And the PPP Center, which is probably more beneficial to the customer than QuickBooks. But look, in banking, I don't see anything related to my downloaded transactions. So I'm not sure why or how this works. Like, why would they have a banking tab that has absolutely nothing to do with what we are used to QuickBooks banking? Go figure. Okay, sales and expenses actually mixes customer and vendor information all in one panel. I kind of like that, by the way. I think I like seeing them all in one shot. Then we have commerce, which basically connects to QuickBooks Commerce. Again, one of QuickBooks products, selling you more QuickBooks products. Then we have payroll. Okay, payroll will give you time tracking, contractors. That's nicely organized. Workers' comp, that's selling you a product as well. Then we got bookkeeping, and then we have transactions. So this is where they put banking. So even though there's a banking tab, there's absolutely nothing inside banking tab. You have to go to bookkeeping and then go into transactions to see what we're used to seeing as banking. I like it. It's not bad. But again, I find it confusing for experienced users. Then we have overview here, which is basically the old overview screen where you can see number of transactions and that sort of thing. Then we have rules, the bank rules, chart of accounts. So chart of accounts is inside bookkeeping, which is interesting. Then we see tags, and then we see live bookkeeping, which is again, QuickBooks selling you one of their products, okay? Then we got taxes here, which is going to be sales tax and only sales tax, because I believe payroll tax, this one doesn't have payroll, but I'm gonna assume that payroll tax will be under payroll, but maybe possibly taxes might be put under taxes as well, the way it was before. I don't have an issue with that. And then we got apps. So that's the overview. Like I said, I don't like it. I just don't like it at all. I made my case. I don't like it at all. Not just because I'm resistant to change. I just think this isn't logical. The fact that you have a banking tab and no banking transactions in it, just all stuff that you sell, that to me is disgraceful, in my opinion. But a different issue. My opinion is not that important anyway. But all right. So that gives you an idea. If you don't want to see that, then you're gonna click on the gear menu. Let me zoom out a little bit. Zoom out. Click on the gear menu, and then you switch to accountant view. Okay. In accountant view, you don't see the new horrible left navigation bar. You get to see the stuff that we're used to. You know, banking, where banking is supposed to be, and that sort of thing. Okay. So that's how you switch it. I suspect, in my opinion, that all of my new clients, or all of our new clients that we bring in, I'm gonna send them a video of me showing people how to switch away from this view, because I really don't want my clients to get confused. Plus, I got 200 videos in QuickBooks Online that show the old navigation bar. All of a sudden, every new QuickBooks user is gonna be confused because they're seeing an entirely different thing. So I kind of have to train people to use the old navigation bar for at least 2 years until I have a chance to replace all my videos to contain the new left navigation bar, because most of my viewers are small business owners, not accountants. Okay. So that's why, and now I guess you understand why I think I don't like it. I just don't like it. If I'm in QuickBooks side, if I'm in Intuit side, I get this is a brilliant move, right? We want to sell more stuff to customers. Let's put it right there in front of them. I think it's brilliant. As a stockholder, I think it's a brilliant move. As an accountant, I hate it, right? So, well, good thing, because I'm a stockholder, an accountant, a customer, I'm able to put different hats on and see it from different perspectives. So I get why they're doing it. I personally just don't like it, okay? The other thing they added is the new improved, and I put improved in quotes, because I was used to the old way, company select experience. So now when you log in, and again, like half of the customers are seeing this, half of the customers see the old screen. Basically, it gives you just bigger boxes for each of your customer names. But what I like about this is being able to search. So you can search inside here instead of having to do like a Control F type of stuff inside your browser and searching for a particular company file in there. So if you have a lot of company files that you manage, you can use the search right in the login screen, which is also pretty cool. So it's improved, yeah, quote unquote, but they added a search. So I think adding the search might be a good thing. Okay. All right. Next thing that I like, and I actually really like this, believe it or not, I really like this. I wish, honestly, there was more of a system-wide preference so we can turn it off completely. You can choose which transactions are going to have tags on it. So if you find that tags confuse you, or they confuse your customers if you're an accountant, you can log in as admin, go into every form and uncheck tags from there. So let me show you what that looks like in the real world. When you go create an invoice, okay, you click on the gear menu on the top right, and that little navigation bar, the little slider or drawer, whatever they call it, comes in, and there's a little checkbox. Okay, now you can remove the tag, but you don't lose the history of the tags that were used. Okay, so if any transactions had tags in them, you keep them. They just no longer show up in the screen for you to work on them. So for example, let's say I have this invoice and I select, let me turn the tags back on. Again, I probably would have been happier with some sort of, I'm just gonna add a tag called 2021. Let me just create a tag there, okay? So there's a tag 2021. I'm gonna save the transaction. Okay, there it is. If I click on the little gear menu on the top and then undo the tags, you don't see it anymore. Beautiful, you can't see it. Okay, I'm gonna click on save. If I want to go back and see the tag, I can just turn it back on and you'll see it right there. Okay, so you don't lose the data. You don't lose the data. So I actually like tags. I love tags, but maybe like 10% of my clients use tags. So I find that tags tend to confuse people that are just not using them. So why even have them? That's why I would prefer more of a system-wide turn off and on tags. But hey, this is one step there. I like that. Okay, so that's it with QuickBooks Online core features. Let's talk about QuickBooks Advanced, okay? All right, let's talk about QuickBooks Online Advanced only. So the first thing that they added, which looks really cool, but at the end is pretty much useless, on the reports, they added a tab called MultiCompany Reporting. Now, I suspect that that tab is going to turn into something else later in the future. Like there'll be stuff in there for you to do related to multi-company. But for now, it's just a tab that shows you a video on how Fathom works. And you would have to get Fathom to do multi-company report consolidation. So the tag itself, the tab itself, it's just a big nothing, a big waste of time. I'll show you. I'm going to open up a QuickBooks Online Advanced account that I have here. Okay. So this is my QuickBooks Online account that I use for testing. I'm going to go into reports, and then right here, it says multi-company reporting. It looks awesome. You're like, oh, finally, they got multi-company reporting. No, it's just a link to clicking on learn more and activating Fathom. Again, Fathom is free for QuickBooks Online Advanced users, but you would pay $40 per company file if you have Plus or Essentials or Simple Start. Okay. All right. So that's the multi-company tab. Just one big useless thing. It's there. Don't get too excited about it. Maybe in the future, they'll add something to that. Hopefully. Next one is bill approval workflow. So earlier this year, I think it was like spring of 2021, they added the ability for you to add what's called a bill approval workflow, where you can pick and choose which bills do not get automatically approved. They need to go to an approver because they get posted. Before they get posted. So I'm going to show you that. Again, this is QuickBooks Online Advanced only. I'm going to go into workflows. I'm going to click my workflows. And then I'm going to click on new custom workflow. New custom workflow. And then I'm going to call this bill approval over, let's say, $1,000. And we're going to choose a bill. And we're going to say, look, send for approval any bills to any of the users inside your QuickBooks Online file that have access to the expense area. So if they have permissions to expenses, then you'll be able to say, so Andrea is the one that has to approve all the bills over $1,000. Okay? So that will send basically an email to Andrea. Andrea has to log in. She has to approve it. I can say, look, it needs to be an unpaid bill. So if the bill is paid, no need to get it approved. And the amount is going to be, let's say, greater than $1,000. There's other things here like terms, location, and vendor. This is where vendor type would be very useful in QuickBooks Online. So you can select a particular group of vendors quickly without having to click on vendor and then having to click here and go through the entire vendor list one by one and pick which of the vendors go through that approval workflow. That's cool. I mean, I love the fact that you can choose specifically which vendors you will need to have a vendor approved for, but that's useless if the person can create new vendors. Then you can create a vendor that looks similar. It's not already on the list. Done, right? So I think it would be much useful if vendor type existed. You can just select vendor type and it'll choose all vendors in one shot, sort of a dynamic list, instead of having to come in here and select each vendor. But that's what's available now. You get to pick whether there's a reminder, whether there's an approval, who can approve it, and the conditions, company paid, amount, vendor, and then you have term and location as the other conditions. Then once you do that, any new vendor that gets created, it needs to be approved by that person, okay? The interesting thing about the vendor approval workflow is that when you create users, so I'm gonna click here on manage users, you can choose which users essentially have access to approving bills. So I'll click on any of these user roles, okay? And let's just pick, let's say this one. Okay, and then as long as that user has access to these little checkbox here that says expenses, then they'll be able to have approve. Now they're still working on the user permission structure in QuickBooks Online Advanced, and at some point, I hope in the near future, you'll be able to click on any of these boxes and select them individually. But right now, it's sort of all or none type of stuff. So as long as anyone has access to expenses and to bills, they'll be able to approve bills. So they'll be able to be added to the list of people that can approve bills. Okay. You cannot choose when they can be paid or how long you have to wait to get paid. That's just not available yet, but that's what's available with the bill approval workflow. It's pretty good for a starting point, but it needs a lot more in order to be useful. Because if you look at a third-party app like Bill.com, which is best in class in this category, and I have QuickBooks Online Plus, for example, I can save $100 by staying in Plus and not going to Advanced, go to Bill.com for $40, $50 a month, and I'm still saving money. So this feature by itself is just not going to be enough to get people to go from Plus to Advanced. It's not even a third or a tenth the power that Bill.com can do, and the price difference is just not there. So again, hopefully they keep improving all these things, and at some point, QuickBooks Advanced will feel like a real, complete, great version of QuickBooks that has all these extra things. But right now, it's still becoming difficult to see the value and pay more than double for Advanced. Okay, let's go to the last thing, which is my favorite feature in QuickBooks Online Advanced. It is, as I mentioned earlier, I criticize QuickBooks Online Advanced a lot because of the price, but there's one feature that I think could make it worth it for QuickBooks users to upgrade from Plus to Advanced, which is a custom report builder. It is, in the past 5 to 6 years, probably one of the best executed new features in the reporting world, in the QuickBooks reporting world, in both desktop and QuickBooks Online. I think the programmers, developers at Intuit are doing a wonderful job with the custom report builder. You're going to see 2 or 3 videos on my YouTube channel about it. And I'm happy to announce that since I talked about this last quarter, they added real-time reporting. So last time I talked about this tool, there was like a 4 or 5 hour delay from when you create a transaction to when it shows up in the report. Now it's real time. That's a big deal. The second one is they added a custom date filter, but it's limited to a year. So right now, you cannot run a report in QuickBooks in custom report builder that's more than a year. Again, as of October 21. Who knows if tomorrow they add that feature? Who knows? They should. They also added customer billing and shipping addresses under the customer entity. These are the default billing and shipping addresses, not the transactions shipping and billing address. They added vendor default expense account, which is pretty cool. And they also added the workflow invoice approval status. So if you have an invoice that hasn't been approved yet, you can see whether or not it has been approved. They need to add that for bills. Again, they should add that for bills also, but that's not there yet. So that's the stuff that they added in the last quarter that's worth mentioning. I'm going to do a demo of the app if you haven't seen it, of the module, if you haven't seen it yet. But before I do that, I want to add a couple more things. So limitations that to me are a big deal, a big opportunity that need to be fixed ASAP. And you need to know this. One is you cannot do more than 1 year's worth of data. 2, there's no drill down. That means you can't click on a transaction and see the actual transaction. So you can see it on the screen, then you have to open another screen and search for the transaction. Drill down is a quintessential experience of the QuickBooks world. And not having the drill down, to me, is a huge missed opportunity. They got to add this ASAP. So hopefully they will. I talked to their developers. They said the one thing they're working on now is getting that drill down link functional. So you should see that soon. Now soon, who knows? It could be a month, it could be a week, could be a couple months. You cannot group transactions by reference number for some crazy reason. I talked to the developers and their response is, I'm not sure what would be the use case for that. Don't get me started on that. You gotta be able to group by transaction number, right? And I'll do if I got time, I'll do a demo and can explain to you where the logic is on the transaction reference. No separate field for customer versus sub-customer versus project versus full path. So when you're doing custom reports, and this comes from someone that's been doing reports forever, you want to have the customer name as one entity. You want to have the sub-customer name as another entity and the project job as another entity so you can pivot the transactions correctly. Right now, you can't do that. It's a problem, okay? Again, it's a small problem for some of you. It's like, I don't even know what the problem is, but I'm telling you, once you create reports about customers, it will be. Right now, the expense account doesn't show a full path. So if you have a sub-account, let's say you have office expenses, sub-account supplies, the only thing that you will see is supplies. You're not going to see office expenses and supplies separately. So you can't pivot stuff, particularly with the new default expense account. I need to be able to pivot stuff that's missing. That needs to be added ASAP. There's no debit credit columns. I suggested this to the developer team. They were able to give me ledger amount, which is similar, which means negative credits, positive debits. It's close, but I would like to see debits and credits in the report. It's a quintessential accounting request, okay? Gotta be able to see debits and credits. No profit. Now, this is more of a big ask, but I would love to see a field for profit, something that takes the sales minus COGS in an inventory transaction. So you can see sales and COGS separately, but you don't get to see them as a net. So I would love to see them as a net. That would be nice. And then no custom summary report. Okay. So no custom summary report. So that being said, with all these things are negatives that I'm mentioning. I gotta tell you, it's an awesome tool compared to having nothing on the custom report side. Okay. So I started by bumming you out about what it doesn't do. Now my job is to impress you about what it can do. So let me show you. I'm going to go into reports and then I'm going to click on standard reports. And then you're going to see an area here that says custom report builder. You're going to see 3 buttons you can press. You're going to see create report. You're going to see invoice report and you're going to see expense report. Let's start with something simple. Invoice report. When I click on invoice report, this is a template. This pre-builds an invoice report. Now, what information are we seeing here? I want you to pay attention to this. I'm going to collapse the left navigation bar so we don't get bothered by that. On the right-hand side, we see this customized report drawer. If I click on the icon that has the 3 little lines, that hides the drawer. If I want to see it again, I will click on customize. That opens up the drawer. Okay. Layout will show me all the fields that are visible to me at the moment. Invoice date, invoice number, customer name, due date, amount, open balance, ship date. I can change the order of these. So if I want to see invoice date and amount, then invoice number, then customer name, I can do that. If I want to see customer first, then the invoice number, then the amount, then the invoice date, I can do that. That's amazing. Super quick, super fast, super responsive. Good job Intuit. Good job designers. That's great. Now, for some reason, I can't get rid of these by dragging them out. That would be awesome. So I wish I could drag them out the way I'm doing now. I don't know if you can see it clearly. I wish I could just get rid of them by dragging them out. That's not available. So in the layout screen, only thing I can do is change order. If I want to get rid of due date, open balance, and ship date, I got to go up to columns, find those fields, and get them out. So here is due date. Get that out. And let's search for ship date. There's a search box, which is awesome. So we search for ship date. And I think the other one was, what was it? Open balance? Yes. Open balance. Open balance. Okay. So I got rid of these fields. So now I'm down to just 4 fields. Okay. Easy, simple. Okay. I'm going to sort these I'm going to sort these by customer. I basically clicked on customer name on the arrows next to it. I sorted by customer. As you can see, they're all sorted by customer. Some customers have more than one transaction. I'm going to group it by customer. So I'm going to click on group, and then click customer name. So what that's going to do is now I have what's called a pivot table. I got my customer. I can click on that, expand it. I can see the 2 specific invoices under that customer. I got my customer and so forth. Okay. Right now, what I'm seeing is header invoice information. So I'm seeing information that belongs to the invoice as a whole, not individual details. I'm going to get rid of amount, so I don't have amount anymore. And then I'm going to go into invoice line items because I want to see the details. And I'm going to enable product and service, and I'm going to enable account line, and let's do ledger amount. That's probably the way I would do it. Okay. Now I'm going to click on customize again, and then I'm going to go up to layout. And I'm going to bring ledger amount right next to product and service like that. Okay. And ledger amount, for some reason, I'm going to have to make some of these columns a little smaller. Okay. To see more information. But for some crazy reason, ledger amount doesn't automatically subtotal. Why? I don't know, but you got to manually do it. So you got to go to group, go to edit group calculations, and add ledger amount and do a total. Then close that. So now when I open these up, I'm going to bring ledger amount a little bit closer to the left so we can see it here. So when I open these, now you get to see every line item inside of the invoice. Now, one thing that's confusing to non-advanced users is that when you tell QuickBooks, give me all the information about an invoice, it's going to give you both header line and line level line. So, for example, this $4.99 transaction, which is a sum of 50, 200, 320, and 71, also contain the debit and the credit. So these essentially net out to 0. This is why these are all netting out to 0, and it looks weird. So interesting enough, there's multiple ways to hack this and get it not to do both the debit and the credit. The simplest one, in my opinion, would be to go into filter, select product and service, go to operation and put is not empty. Because then what that would do is that would get rid of any line items in there that do not contain an item attached to it. So that's essentially going to get rid of that higher level balancing transaction. Now, because this is a debit credit situation, you're going to see things in negative. Negative means, negative means a credit, right? It means a sale. That's one of the things that makes things a little bit confusing. Let's open up a couple more of these and see if we see any more positives and negatives. So I can show you a couple things. I don't think I have any inventory transactions in here. I don't. Okay, let me do an inventory transaction to show you. So let me create an inventory part. Widget 1. And let's say I have 10 in stock as of the beginning of the year. And they costed 200. They costed 200 each. And the sales price on these is, let's say, 300. Okay. So I created widget 1, save and close. Then I'm going to create a new invoice. It's really important. You need to understand that with inventory in particular, this stuff gets pretty interesting. I'm going to grab here AAA construction, and I'm going to sell them a widget. I'll sell them 4 widgets at $275 each. Okay, I'll do a save and close here. Beautiful. So now I officially have an inventory transaction. I'm going to go back into reports. Go back to, I'm going to create a report from scratch because I got to start over. All right, so invoice. I had invoice date, I had invoice number, and that's it. And I think I had customer name too. Customer name, correct. And then from the details, I had, it was product and service and was a ledger amount. There you go. And I think I had account line too. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So now you see them here. I'm going to group them again, group them by customer. So we're achieving the same thing we did before. Okay. There we go. There's AAA construction. And we had another filter, yep, which was product and service. And it was not empty. Okay. AAA construction. Let's take a look at the latest invoice here. And this is what I wanted to show you. I'm going to bring in ledger. Let me bring ledger amount to the forefront here. Okay. So we have this invoice that has the widget 1. You can see here that $1,100 was my sales price. $800 is my cost of goods sold, my inventory asset reduction, and $800 is my cost of goods sold. So all of a sudden, what I'm seeing here is profit. So if I go in here and I look at my ledger amount totals, so let's go to ledger amount totals. Essentially, this number that I'm seeing here, it's a profit number. Okay, so 1375 is the profit. So the reason why it matters is because depending on the report you're looking at, you might want to see profit, you might want to see something else. So let's do something else. I'm going to go here to group. I'm going to add, and then I'm also going to group them by invoice date by, let's do by quarter. Okay. So then when I look at my invoices for AAA construction, I have them grouped them by quarter. If I look at my last quarter here, or here, my last quarter, there's 4 lines that belong to essentially 2 invoices. This is the part that drives me nuts. I cannot group this by invoice number. I don't have the ability to do that. They got to fix that, because if I wanted to know my profit per invoice, I can't. And that drives me flipping bonkers. However, I found a hack, which is, and again, it's a little bit of a hack. There's this weird thing called transaction number, which is sort of a hidden, it's a hidden field. I might have to search it. Okay, it's transaction number, which is not the same thing as invoice number. It's a weird number that QuickBooks uses to track the transaction. Okay, so I'm going to bring in transaction number. Again, not the same thing as the invoice number, and I'm going to bring it here all the way to the top, just so you can see me change the order of that. And then we see transaction number. So I'm going to open up again AAA construction. I'm going to open the transactions. Nope, that wasn't it. Okay, it wasn't transaction number. Whoops, apologize. Was it a transaction ID? It's my mistake. Give me a second. Is it reference? It's a reference number, maybe? Let me just double check, just in case I'm missing this somehow. That's my mistake, sorry. Let me type number here again. Yeah, curious that I can't find the flipping transaction number. Give me a second. I'm embarrassed by this because I had it at some point. Let me expand this and expand these. No, there isn't. Well, forget about that for now. I don't know what else to tell you. There is a transaction number somewhere, but I don't know why it's not showing up there. I promise you at some point I could see it. Let me do clear all for a second. Now this is driving me crazy. Okay, I know there's something that says transaction number, but I don't know why I can't see it. It's some sort of reference number. We'll skip that. If you can see it in the future, I'm just going to say, imagine you can see in the future. There's a transaction reference number somewhere that used to show up in here, and I could group it by that, but they probably just removed it for some reason. But that was the only workaround I had for not being able to do invoice numbers. I mean, I could, let me see. What if I put ID? Transaction ID maybe? I'll experiment with you here. There it is. Transaction ID. Ah, for the love of Christ. Okay. Make it easier for me into it. Please. Okay. Transaction ID. Transaction ID was the one I was looking for. It's inside transaction. Okay. So let me build this again. So it was invoice date. It was invoice number, which I really don't care about at this point. We had customer name. And then we had, from the line items, we had ledger amount, account line, product and service, and ledger amount. Yeah, that was it. Okay, and then we went to filter. Good review for you. We filter product and service, and we go to it's not empty. And and then we're gonna group these by customer first, and then we said date second, date by quarter. And then this is the workaround, transaction ID. I know it's weird, but it's what it is. So I have in my date, and now I have basically two transactions. Transaction 3321 and 35221, which doesn't mean anything to anyone other than how QuickBooks identifies it all to be the same transaction. When I open that, then I can see that all have the same invoice number. I open this one, only one line, there's the invoice number. That's what I wanted to get to. Anyway, so we're almost done here. I wanted to show you one more thing, which is being able to see the profit portion versus the profit portion versus the cost versus the sale. So there's one more thing here we're going to add here, which is account type. And this is pretty cool. So there's an account type here in the chart of accounts, and I can bring in account type. And then what I'll do is here under grouping, I'm going to get rid of the dating because I can only do 3 layers. And then I'm going to add account type, because this will be the best way to sort of illustrate this. So now when I open up all my invoices, I see all my transaction IDs, and 3521 was the one where we had the inventory. I open that up. Okay. And then you can see right here. So we have the income part, and let me, again, what I do have a general criticism about this is how often I have to change the order of the stuff, in order to be able to see it right there in front of me. That's one of the things I kind of hate about it, that I find myself changing the order all the time to bring more stuff into the screen, because there's a limit of things you can see on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to put ledger amount right after account type. That might be the easiest one. So I open up AAA construction. I open up that transaction ID. And then, okay, perfect. Then I see my income is 1,100. Other current assets, which is my inventory my inventory credit. And then I see my cost of goods sold, which is my cost of the items. So what I want to get rid of generally is I want to get rid of other current asset. So I go into filter, I add a new filter, go to transaction type, then go to is not equals other current asset. Okay, or I can do is equals. I can do both of these, and then only equal income and COGS. Again, that's when we want to look at profits. Okay, and we're almost done here. I want to make one more point about printing these reports, because that's an important point to make. And there it is. So there it is. There's my income, and there's my cost. So my profit on the invoice is $300. So finally, we can see profit by invoice. So thank you, QuickBooks Online, in the most backwards way possible. You gave me the ability to see profitability by invoice. It took many clicks, much trial and error, much embarrassment to get to this point. But the problem I have is I can only do it by transaction ID. I want to see it by invoice number. Transaction ID doesn't mean anything to me. That's one of the things that I hate about this. Okay, so again, it's cool that we got here, and I'm going to make the point. This reporting tool is extremely powerful. It is the best reporting tool QuickBooks has ever come up with. Again, everything QuickBooks come up with is like a 3 rating out of a 10. So if this is the best they have come up with, it's a 3. It's a good 3. Solid 3 out of 10. Okay, I need a lot more than that. But the pathway that they're going at, the way we discover these transactions, the way we get the information displayed on the screen, the easiness on where you can pick something from the open fields. It's awesome. It's a great tool. It's just missing stuff. So good news is I became pretty good friends with the person in charge of this, and I'm giving that person feedback every single week, and everything they've asked for, they either implemented or added it to their pipeline, which is really good news. So I'm picturing this to be a very powerful tool I can use for my own clients for consulting and giving them information inside QBO. Now, another major issue now, they should solve this soon, is that there's no print button. So yes, I did say that. There's no print button. You cannot print these reports. So they're only for your viewing pleasure. For your viewing non-drill down pleasure. Okay? Nothing, no printable. Closest thing to having a printable report is you export it to Excel, and then in Excel, you open it and then you print it from Excel. So yes, it's horrible that they didn't give us the printing feature, but it's not impossible. You just got to get it into Excel and you can print from Excel. In Excel, it doesn't look the same. When you go to Excel, it exports flat. So what we did here, which is set up all these layers, like the customer job, the transaction ID, it doesn't export like that yet. Okay, so it exports flat. And then if you wanted to then create your own pivot table, fine, create your own pivot table in Excel. But this is what we have. So there's no official printing or PDF saving that looks the exact way as you're seeing on the screen. So I think that this tool is still a beta. In my opinion, this is the beta. You're watching a tool go from a 3 to possibly a 9 or a 10 in a year or two, but you're watching the tool in this 30% area. And while I will make the point that I think this is the single most powerful tool that QuickBooks has built that will give you the ability, or it will justify upgrading to QuickBooks Online Advanced for many, many reasons. It's just not ready. It's not ready to be used as a feature. Like you could, I think QuickBooks should say beta custom report builder. It's there. It's cool. Play with it, but it's no longer something. It's not right now something you can brag that is a great feature of QuickBooks Online Advanced. So when you see marketing materials in QuickBooks Online Advanced that says advanced reporting, it's bullshit. It's not. It's getting there, but it's not an item that should be marketed because the tool is just not ready yet. But that being said, with all the criticism, I think it's the best thing that QuickBooks has developed for QuickBooks Online in a very, very long time. All right, that being said, that's it for this quarter. There's my email if I didn't cover anything on the screen. If you want to add more feedback or whatever, there it is. I'll see you next quarter, and we'll see what new features QuickBooks has for us. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.